It's the Two Strange Podcast.
Hello, everybody out there in cyberspace. Welcome to another episode of Two Strange Men. I'm not going to do anything weird.
You've just dated us back to 2000, cyberspace. We're the first podcasters ever or something.
Yeah, I wish.
I actually researched the first podcaster ever, and it's just gonna. Do you know it was like for IT nerds.
Oh, was
the first podcast ever was to talk about IT hardware.
Brilliant.
Can't remember the guy's name. I think it's Cal something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, an early descendant of me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like reincarnation.
He's an old guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's still alive, and I'm inhabiting two bodies at
Well,
once.
the podcast ran all the way up to 2014.
Yeah, and it managed to amass about 5 listeners in that time.
I think it's more popular now than because it's the first podcast than it ever was when it was on air. But
Yeah.
that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're immortalised, baby.
So yeah, well, we're kind of matching their numbers with about 5 listeners per week, which is good.
Yeah.
And to those 5 listeners,
And none of them are my mum.
none of them are. None of you are Tom's mum.
I don't think any of them are actually people connected to me.
Yeah, well, that's good. Good stuff.
Are they connected to you?
Absolutely not.
They're brand new people.
It might be me just downloading it to test the audio, and I hope that's not the case, but it could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome everyone from cyberspace. We are going to
Welcome,
be.
Cal 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
What's this? Oh, yes, yeah. We are going to be talking about, today, we're talking about merpeople.
Merpeople.
And this has been inspired by our recent look at the film Dagon.
Yep. People turn into fish.
People turning into fish, and they like it because they worship the god Dagon. And it's all great because
Yeah.
it means that the fish come in from the waters into their fishing nets, and that's all good.
Yeah, which is really cannibalistic when you start to think about it. They're
Yeah.
turning into fish so they can eat more fish.
Yeah, but it's almost like a hierarchy, isn't it? You've got merfolk,
Yeah.
who I assume can eat fish, all right?
Yeah.
And then there's got the lower beings that are just the swimmy ones
But
that
that's
don't
like,
have
that's like
thought
saying,
and stuff.
oh, do you know what's really good? Cooking babies.
Well, if you listen to my other podcast, Cooking with Babies, you'll know that I am actually quite proficient in the idea of
Cooking with babies or cooking babies?
Well, you have to listen in.
because grammar's important.
Grandma is important, and she's
Yeah.
often on the podcast, feasting
Popping
on
out-
the babies
Popping out
that I
another
cook.
one. Yeah. For the old frying pan.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's some ASMR for you all.
Yeah. See, back in my day, we used to cook everything with lard: babies, dogs, machine parts.
For those of you who don't know, that wasn't in the studio. That she actually came in.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just popped in and went, well.
yeah. Fuck off, Grandma. Aren't you dead? Anyway.
Well. Why'd you ruin everything?
That's what my grandma said to me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I bet she did.
On a deathbed. Anyway. All right. Okay. So there is a lot to kind of talk about with the idea of merfolk. It's kind of a broad subject. If you kind of think there's the idea of fish gods
Yep.
who could potentially, bring in that idea of fish people, etc. If you're looking at the way in which they're depicted over time, and then beyond that. Beyond the sort of the Old Testament sort of times, you can kind of see how it's then developed in myth and culture beyond there. So we're going to be looking first of all, we're going to look at the idea of gods and the mystical idea of a Dagon sort of god, and then we're going to move on and look at just mermaids, sirens, and other such things like that. Be fun time to have.
And I imagine that most people are familiar with mermaids and sirens at this point. They are a huge kind of part of our mythos. Whenever we, venture into dangerous seas or places, we always have a supernatural element to describe the danger, right? And sirens have very much become that in modern culture. Well, not during the industrial age. The stories of sirens skyrocketed, because people wouldn't come back from from sea, and there'd be shipwrecks because
Absolutely.
of storms. So there's so much writing in like the 17th and 18th century about sirens and mer people dragging ships down.
That age of big trade where everyone's getting a job. Like, just go down to the docks and you'll get a job, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, they go off and pillage other countries and whatever it is that they do. Do a bit of trade, probably. Bit pirating. Bit this, bit that.
Bit that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Shag a mermaid.
Who are the sirens, really?
Who are
we the sirens?
Yes, absolutely. The sirens, the podcasting sirens who are leading you to listen, chuckle too much,
I meant
and
more
then
like
crash your car.
the traders, you know, because they're inevitably like drowning in their own greed. I was going all like meta with it, but it's fine. Like I can see that this this road is less travelled for a reason, so we can get back to back to what we're talking about.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about mermaids, bitch.
Okay, all right. Well, here's my prepared introduction into it all. So check your oxygen tank, put your snorkels on. We're about to dive in.
I feel sick.
Dive into that sick. Anyway, so first of all, we're going to look at something called the Apkallu. The Apkallu. Okay. And there is a specific god that belonged to a series of sort of 7 gods that found their way in Babylonian myth. Okay, so you've got Apkallu, who is kind of like a fish person. You've got like a bird person as well, amongst others. Okay. And so, you know, the Babylonians, they essentially believed that there were these anthropomorphic beings who emerged from the Persian Gulf in the daytime to teach early humans writing, agriculture, and law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, like, that in itself is just so mysterious and amazing to me. Is just the idea that people believe that, like, you know, these gods came down and taught people, very early people, these, like, new knowledge and stuff like that. It makes me think, hey, listen to this. Shh, 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 shh. Aliens. Yeah? Huh? When they weren't teaching...
Or just a really early idea of, like, Christianity, right? God coming down and teaching.
What, Adam and Eve?
No, just in general. Because usually, you know, you have your good guys up there.
Yeah.
And they come down and impart knowledge.
Yeah.
And then you have your not so good guys down there. And if you stray from the path, you go down there. And there's so many faiths that do that.
Yeah, but it's all aliens, though, isn't
and
it?
It's just
like, it's aliens all the way down. Pyramids built by aliens, obviously. Yeah. Obviously, Tom.
Yeah, we're not.
No one's disputing that.
No
okay?
one.
No one is disputing that. Ask anyone.
Yeah. Very solid information you're putting out on the podcast today. And don't even think about it. Don't research it. Don't think about it. Turn your brain off. We're here to give you pure facts.
So, like, you know, the Babylonians, they worshipped aliens, is what I'm saying to you. And there we go. So the Apkallu were 7 demigods of wisdom who helped essentially shape civilization. Okay. And they were seen as a civilizing force from the waters. And they saw fish as a vessel of knowledge as well. Now, alongside this is the idea that you have a series of 7 gods. And I like this idea of these 7 gods because you can actually see a transition from, say, like Persian mythos, like that Babylonian mythos, into like Greek, Mesopotamian mythos as well. And essentially, you know, the idea of these 7 wisdom-giving demigods was kind of adopted by the Greeks, and they had a form of this called the 7 sages.
Yeah. Familiar with them.
Yeah, and so you've got, like, for example, a very popular one who's said to have, you know, like, started a long line of teachers. You know, so and so taught so and so taught Pythagoras, so and so taught Aristophanes or whatever the names are, etc. And so taught like Plato, and then you know, Socrates and all of that sort of stuff as well, or the other way around. So Thales of Miletus was one of those, for example. who was, listed as one of the 7 wise men. They're often thought of as people who were lovers and emulators and disciples of the culture of the Spartans. Okay,
Yeah.
specifically, and yeah, I really like the way in which people can just copy each other and go like, yeah, that was good, that worked for your culture. I'm just going to nick that and put that in
Yeah.
my culture.
So this poses the ultimate question to me, right? So whenever you hear wise men, they
Yeah.
always come in some
Well, you're
sort
hearing
of...
hearing 2 right now, everyone. You're welcome.
Well, wait for this. Buckle in.
Yeah.
So it's always in odd denominations, right? 3, 7, 9. Like wherever you look, there's never
12 apostles.
There's never 2.
Yeah.
So now's the time. Now's the time to add a third.
7 strange men.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah.
We ain't got enough podcast arms, but I think we'd speak over each other. But other
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
that, sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're going to be on that. We just need to recruit. Maybe some of the listeners that we've got at the moment.
Think of it this way: 2.5 listeners each.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know we're both not good at maths, but if there's 7 of us, that's like 17. I know it's 14, and then
Fuck me.
0.5 minus 7. Yeah, so it's like 17, 18.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good, mate.
It's a lot more than we've got at the minute.
All right. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that was the first sort of segment, is the idea of the Apkallu, and wisdom providers.
Yeah.
Really nice, and they were fish-like demigods. Sometimes fish-like, sometimes bird-like. Either way, they're coming from.
Were they ever fish birds?
Were they ever fish birds? What, flying fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
All of that.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, like, all we've got is these pictures of them, We have to wait till these aliens come visit us again so that we can actually...
Really honed in on that, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's just a body of water with like a great atmosphere somewhere with these little flying fish people.
Mate, I'm just trying to get Graham Hancock onto the podcast at this point in time.
Okay. He's the third.
Yeah, he is, yeah. Once he's finished with his Netflix documentaries, he'll be here.
Is there anyone we haven't offered that third seat to? Is he getting desperate yet?
Yeah. Nick Cage, we're still here if you need us. Anyway.
Bit weird he's not reached out, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know he's one of them.
Do you know his email?
Listeners. Yeah, nickcage@gmail.com.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is. Nicholas.cage.
Probably. It probably is something ridiculous, isn't it?
Okay, all right. So now we were talking about Merfolk because of the film Dagon. And so I've just got a little bit of information about Dagon
Yeah.
in particular.
Hit me
Now, Dagon is a god for me who kind of personifies the idea of sort of like paganism, something that is opposite to Christianity. Because actually, like the Philistines, he's a Philistinian god, in fact, were essentially the antagonists of a lot of the New Testament of the Bible. So when the Israelites were like moving, were a nomadic people after Egypt, before they were taken to the Promised Land, they were kind of like, they had this sort of like pop-up temple. And they had the Ark of the Covenant within that, which was like the most sacred thing that they ever had and stuff. Yeah. And a lot of their stories that ended up being kind of like a MacGuffin, like something that like the people have to look after, protect, or steal, and then like or get it back, etc.
Yeah.
Or, save and that sort of thing. And it's the Philistines who are often the ones that would be causing that antagonism. One of the famous Philistines would have been Goliath from the story of David and Goliath, for example. But in Samuel, in the book of Samuel, you've actually got a large period, a large sort of like section that actually identifies Dagon specifically. And there's other there's other like gods as well that have that same sort of like feeling of like they feel particularly like pagan or even particularly satanic.
Yeah.
Because they are, a god that is in opposition of the God of the Israelites.
Yeah.
So you've got like Baal. like things like Molech as well, like, you know, that kind of stand out and feel very much like they should be on like a heavy metal like t-shirt.
Well, have
or something like
have
that.
you seen that YouTube short where it's like Asmodeus, Baal, and it's like a song, and it's saying all the different like satanic names.
Yeah.
And they've given them all metal logos. I need to find this for you. They've all got like AI generated images of these like gods shredding guitars.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's pretty sick.
So yeah, Dagon would be there, like with his fishtail.
Dagon wasn't on that particular thing.
Dagon.
Which feels like he's been mugged off.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity there.
Yeah.
But like one thing that often comes up is the idea that it's been misinterpreted as a fish god. And it's not necessarily a fish god. But there is an awful lot of carvings and stuff like that where Dagon has a tail. Yeah. And is particularly fishy in some way. But obviously it's
like legs, but then he's just got like a little...
Yeah, at times, you know, I think the most famous sort of like image that comes up shows him like, you know, with an Assyrian sort of like big bushy beard sort of thing, like with the hat as well. But then like with the tail, with a mermaid's tail, etc.
Okay.
But you know, like I can't tell you which of those images is actually accurate to what the Philistines actually believed and stuff like that. You know, again, like, you know, this would be a reason why we call someone a Philistine if they don't know something, is because of those people from Philistine who, you know, had like false gods and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually later iconography and medieval sources that describe him with a fishtail. And his name actually sounded like the Hebrew word for fish, which was dag or dag, or something like that. But anyway, he was possibly a grain deity, later associated with maritime fertility, as we're finding all gods are at this point in time.
Yeah.
Everyone's a fertility god.
We I'm not going to say that.
We are fertility gods.
So some things need to be locked in the vault.
Yeah. Welcome everyone to Two Strange Men, the Fertility God
Yeah.
podcast, where we exclusively talk about fertility gods.
Yeah.
And we measure all of the fertility gods'
That
dick
was-
sizes.
Really wondering where that was going. Still a little bit scared because it could still go there.
Well, I'm done. But anyway,
That's what you'd say as a fertility god. I'm done.
Yeah. So since we had a big look at Dagon last week as a film, I kind of wanted to sort of like focus on that just for a little bit. So before moving on, I just wanted to read you a bit of the passage within Samuel chapter 5. I think it's 1 Samuel chapter 5 that mentions Dagon. And so essentially what's happened is the Philistines have stolen the Ark of the Covenant from the Israelites, and then the Israelites are going to have to, at some point in time, get it back.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is essentially talking about what the Philistines were doing with the Ark of the Covenant, and it's kind of like God's kind of messing with them in the same way that he messed with the Egyptians during the old Moses debacle.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the Philistines had captured the Ark of God, they took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then they carried the Ark into Dagon's temple and set it beside Dagon. When the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, there was Dagon, fallen on his face on the ground before the Ark of the Lord. They took Dagon and put him back in his place. But the following morning when they arose, there was Dagon, fallen on his face on the ground before the Ark of the Lord. His head and hands had been broken off and were lying on the threshold. Only his body remained. That is why to this day, neither the priests of Dagon nor any others who enter Dagon's temple at Ashdod step on the threshold. This is something that happened, yeah?
God's a bully, isn't he?
Yeah. He's completely disrespecting that god by basically just like a cat on a table, just
Yeah,
like
like knocking
knocking
over the
over.
statue.
Yeah.
I like to see God go tail to tail with him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're gonna knock him out.
Yeah, just like God
That's
has
a fight
to.
promotion, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could,
But it's like, where do you do it? Do you do it up in space in heaven, or do you do it under the water? Like, who's gonna?
do we just rebrand as like a God versus God podcast?
We are going to get around to that Patreon episode where we do rank the gods, don't we? But there's a lot of fucking gods out there. That would be a very long
Like,
podcast.
I think I knew about 40 before this podcast. I think now there's 800 that
Yeah,
are
exactly.
in the old...
How many are going to be on the S tier?
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, like, you know, if it's the Christian God, he's like, I am the one true God. So only that would be the S tier one if we're Christians. So
Yeah, but we're not. So,
Yeah. So fair
fuck you, Yahweh.
Jesus.
Yeah. No thunder, mate. You're not Zeus.
Yeah.
Zeus is S tier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, we talked about this, didn't we? Zeus is a bit of a perv.
Yeah, but like in terms of like, you know, if we're doing power ranking, popularity, the kid's got it all.
Yeah, I suppose. Like, he's got some priorities. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, he still likes to get
They're all
freaky.
dickheads.
Yeah, they're all dickheads.
Yeah, so you can't rank them on personality because they'll all
right.
be like F tier.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so you've heard it here first. Apkallu, all of the gods in there, dickheads.
Oh no, they're all right. They're S tier.
Dagon, dickhead.
I think
anyway,
Dagon's probably
we're going to
dickhead.
move on to another dickhead. We've got Aptu and Anet, who were sacred fish, said to swim in front of Ra's solar bark on his journey through the underworld. Okay. The Nile's fertility was tied to fish and their cycles, showing early veneration of aquatic life as spiritual. So you don't necessarily have like these gods, but you've got these fish-like creatures that are kind of there to almost like beautifully support the myth. You know, much like, you know, we saw, we heard recently about, you know, the frogs that were in the underworld, just like, you know, throwing out like shit at the passers-by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you, you dead cunt. Actually, I probably shouldn't say the C word, should I? We've got to have limits here.
Croak. Well, it's too late. Yeah.
You might have to bleep out the C word.
Oh, Jesus, you said it, didn't you?
I did.
You finally...
I went full C.
You popped the cherry.
I did.
You? I've not got time for this, mate. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's out there now.
I could do it again.
I'm very surprised. Like, out of the both of us, you are the one that's chastising me about my expletives, and you're the one that went full. See you next Tuesday.
Yeah, but I embodied the nasty little frog inside me, and it just came out.
It's all a moral panic at the end of the day, isn't it? The people that, like, you know, protest.
Moral satanic panic.
Doth protest too much, I would say. Yeah, you protest too much, you cunt. Anyway, moving on. All right, so...
broke the seal then.
Speaking of seals, we might as well use that as an opportunity to move on and look at the idea of sirens, mermaids, and also selkies as well. Have you heard of selkies?
I've not heard of selkies.
Okay. Now, we will just briefly talk about sirens and mermaids because everyone knows about them. Do you know what I mean? And I think selkies is a bit more interesting. But either way, you've got the idea of mermaids, okay? But the idea of mermaids didn't necessarily originate through the idea of sirens. But at some point in time, sirens ended up getting depicted as mermaids. However, they're not the case. Sirens have bird bodies, okay? They've got they could be like red-breasted tits, etc. You know,
Sort of like harpies, but
Yes.
beautiful faces.
it could be like, you know, a couple of great tits or something like that. You know, birds.
Birds, yeah.
Yeah, birds.
Birds.
Yeah, a couple of birds hanging out by some rocks. And yeah, like I don't
That's
know
where
how
we
that
get
was-
what a great bird from. I don't know, man.
couple of boobies on the side there. You know, getting the sailors to come over.
Yeah.
Check out those boobies.
Oh, look, it's another red tit. No, that's a siren.
They've got blue-footed boobies. Anyway, so yeah. But what I don't understand is, like, I don't understand how that's going to work then, because, like, are they flying up in the air singing at people, come over here?
Yeah.
You know, crash your ship. But, like, it makes more sense that they're like the fish people hanging
because
at the
like
rocks.
they're in the water, right, and you can't see the tail. You just see this beautiful woman from sort of like the midriff, and you're like, oh yeah, I will come over there. Oh, you've got a banging voice.
Yeah.
But then if I'm seeing like a big ass bird with a human face, I'm like, fuck that. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I think what we need to do is a Patreon episode as well of, like, you know, the anthropomorphic, like, women tier list as well.
Yeah.
Because we talk about it all the time with octopus women,
We're actually
mermaid,
we're actually
bird
just-
woman,
it's
frog women.
two strange perverts.
It is. Which god will you bang
Yeah.
next? Essentially, I'll get through them all.
Zeus. Est it.
Well, the thing is, Zeus has the ability to change into any animal, just so that he can.
Oh, I'm aware.
Like lay some woman. Yeah.
Guy's a massive perv.
Yeah. Would you rather bang Zeus while he's a swan or a bull or an oxen? You know, that sort of thing. Which one are you going for?
I mean, are they all male though?
I guess. At what point in time has Zeus's gender been identified? Maybe he's like fluid. Maybe he's like a fluid god. Do you know what I mean?
All right. Well,
I mean, he's a fluid what's the word? Form, isn't he? So if he can turn himself into swan, he can turn his willy into something else, couldn't he?
okay.
Maybe they've got like god's genitals that are like completely different.
It's just the universe inside there.
So unlock the secrets of like Aryan.
Yeah.
Or what is it? Yeah. What's that person who unlocked the Pandora's box? Yeah. What does Pandora's box actually look like?
Maybe it's God's genitals.
Yeah. All of the evils of the world creeped out
I feel
of
like
the
this
box.
is the weirdest episode we've ever done.
Maybe, but we're cut for time and we're very busy, so it's just, do you know what I mean? Like it's free flowing.
Yeah, let's just stack it on. What's your next fish fact on the old fact file there?
All right, okay. I guess it's interesting to see how like there's a cultural shift between like sirens and mermaids and stuff like that. But generally, what in my research, what I found is that the main like beyond just like the basic stories about like the Little Mermaid, etc. The idea behind mermaids kind of is like matched to like marriage and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So essentially, it's like it's almost like a fable for someone to like watch who you marry, for example. Oh, got to drink some water.
I was gonna say, is that the water alarm?
Yeah, it's the water alarm. I mean, I am a mermaid or merfolk person.
He's got to carry it around with him. That's why, because we were actually going to do something else. He's like, no, I need to talk about my people. That's exactly what happened.
So yeah, like the idea is that a lot of the time in these stories, you've got this idea that you find this woman washed up on the shore and you fall in love with them and you decide you have to marry them because they're so beautiful. But because that relationship was doomed to fail because they belong to the sea, they long to go back to the sea. Yeah. And what they end up doing is they abandon the father. A lot of the time, I mean, you've got to think when it's coming out, everyone's like the protagonist is a male. If anything, the antagonist is going to be like is going to be the female like version, and the mermaid definitely is kind of like in this sort of like just sort of like basic drama fable. They are definitely like the antagonist because they're essentially they abandon their family, but they abandon their family because they just long for the sea and it's within their nature. It's like, you know, marrying a horse. It's like, do you know what I mean? Like you could really enjoy having sex with that horse, but at some point in time, if you want like a marriage to that horse, they just want to like fuck off and run in the meadows. Do you know what I mean? No matter how you want to have sex with them.
It's that cautionary tale, isn't it? Like you can't change somebody's fundamentals.
Even though,
and you can try and mould somebody that way because you're going to go back to the horse thing.
Because you want to have sex with the horse.
I'm just trying to make it like, you know, palatable for anybody that's not you.
And it's the same. And it's the same with.
If you say frog, I'm out.
And it's the same with people as well.
Yeah.
You know. And also, there's the question that I have to bring up. Everyone's talked about it as well. Is like. And it's kind of the same with horses as well because they're so damn sexy. Is the idea that it's not me that's saying horses are sexy, okay?
Who is it?
Why
then?
is there such a thing as horse girls? Okay, they like horses
because there's lots of perverts on the internet, Cal. That's very well documented.
No, I'm talking about people who like horses and like essentially create their whole personality around the idea of horses. And then of course there's the bronies who like
because they don't have much going on. Like or like maybe they like it as a sport. No one who's into like horse riding. Well, maybe some of them. They're not.
Some
going,
of them, I'm telling you,
they're
mate.
not
Some
going,
of them
"I
look at
wanna
that
ride
horse
that."
and go, "God damn, that's a sexy horse. I gotta get me some horse.
There is a fundamental difference.
Gotta build a stable."
Between being sexually attracted to something and being like, that is a beautiful creature.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we need to discuss this at length.
I don't know.
Outside of this podcast.
I don't know. What's at the heart of it? You ask Freud, he'd probably say, "Well, you want to have sex with your mother or a horse?"
He just wanted to have sex with anything, so he just wanted to, you know,
Oh.
he'd be right there with that mermaid, like grinding up on the scales.
Do you think Sigmund Freud is just another version of Zeus? Like he just want to have sex with everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're basically the same person.
Cool. Yeah. This was the pillow talk that Zeus would have with people when he'd turned back. It's like, well, I could turn into your mother if you want, because you want to have sex with that.
Or a horse, because we all know that.
Absolutely.
They're beautiful.
What was my point? Oh yeah. Okay. It's the idea of like which part would you have as the mermaid, the top half or the bottom half? And then you could say the same thing about centaurs, top half or bottom half.
I'd have bottom half fish.
Bottom half fish, yeah. So you could have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What would I do with human legs?
Actually have sex with it,
If the
because otherwise you can't.
I think I'm done today.
No, I'm paying for you by the hour. I'm not unlocking that
So
door.
it's locked. Yeah, the door is actually locked, folks.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a joke.
It's important that I do lock
Yeah.
it. Anyway,
Because otherwise, you'd have like 500 guests every week,
absolutely.
And
The seven sages would be trying to get
and
in.
none of them have anything interesting to say. So you're not missing out on anything.
Absolutely.
We are the interesting part of this building, which is sad, really.
It is.
Um,
Anyway, back to the interesting conversation. All right. Okay. So you're saying bottom half mermaid,
top half fish.
Yeah.
No, no.
Bottom half and top half. Brilliant. Good
So,
to know.
Bottom half mermaid, top half human.
Okay. All right. Centaur.
Centaur. I just stick with being human. Like human, top half, bottom half, horse.
Okay. All right. All right. So you'd happily just like have sex with like a horse's like backside.
I think if I was a creature, I probably wouldn't be minding if I had sex or not.
If you're a creature,
Yeah,
I never
like-
said this. I was saying, Tom, what would you like?
Well,
And
I don't want to have a bottom half of anything, to be honest.
All right, fair enough. You go with that then. I guess more for me then.
Well, what about you?
Well, I mean, like,
Can't believe we're wasting our precious time on bottom half, top half.
I suppose so. Yeah, we should really move on, shouldn't we? Before I have to answer.
You can tell me in private.
I probably have done already. But no, like, if I'm honest, come on, it would have to be like top half, you know, and then I could take advantage of their like swimming abilities and stuff like that.
Very difficult to film this podcast every week.
Yeah. What if we were mermaids?
If we were mermaids or centaurs,
Yeah.
we ain't got space for that.
Absolutely. Imagine the size of rooms and doors if
Yeah.
everyone was knocking around as centaurs. That would be insane.
Yeah.
Everything would have to look like a barn, pretty much. And people would be shitting everywhere as well. Like, you don't put nappies on a horse.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
I like the gig we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know, like horses, they tend to, like, you know, let their dong hang loose and like often slapping
You're
it against their
obsessed.
bellies as well. So like, what's that going to look like in like modern society? Do you know what I mean? You've got
Yeah.
like the prime minister as a centaur.
Imagine the penis shame. Like, yours isn't 55 inches long.
Jesus. I mean, yeah. I mean, our whole society would be completely changed if we
Yeah.
were centaurs. Like, it'd be
Do you
completely
think
different.
there'd be like a dildo company that would be like, and we do human penises?
So we're in a world where there's centaurs and humans.
No, but you know how like there's companies
Oh,
that
yes,
do
there
those
is.
weird creature like dildos.
Yeah.
Imagine like there's one
Yeah.
that's like,
Yeah.
I've designed a human one.
That's it. I mean, but like I think is that maybe the next stage of like the evolution of like sex dolls and stuff. So like they become more realistic, but then
So
after
they
that
become
point
creatures.
in time, are we going to have mythological creatures? Like I want to have sex with the Minotaur. Like,
Oh,
don't
100%
shame
that's
me.
a thing.
Don't shame me.
I can guarantee you someone somewhere is making that in their mum's basement
Welcome to my labyrinth.
and selling it to like their Reddit friends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
crazy.
wiped clean, by the way. Anyway, okay, so yeah, that's that, and the idea of like mermaids in this way, that they were kind of like home wreckers, I guess, to a certain extent, is like quite prominent in all of these stories. And the Irish and the Scottish, they have their own sort of mythos around this called selkies, which are essentially seals. Yeah.
Okay.
So that brings something else into this. It's the idea of like, what are you more interested in, selkies or mermaids, etc.? Which one would you rather do, Tom?
Not a seal.
Not a seal, no.
Who's looked at seal and bangable? Smash or pass? Smash.
Yeah, I mean, like they've got the silky, oily bodies.
Oh, this took a real weird turn.
Do you not think that every episode gets a bit weirder?
Let's never record on a Friday again. Is this your punishment because we couldn't record on Wednesday?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Look, I mean, this is what happens when I'm the only one that does actually any decent research for this episode. Okay, you're getting fed information, and I can control it. Okay,
this is never going to happen again. I assure you.
Okay. It's a lot of the time it's about seduction at this point in time. Selkies, essentially, they left their skin, their seal skin, on the beach, and then went off to be humans, and then would return when they put their seal skin on. They became a seal again.
Okay.
What are you laughing at now?
That's fucking weird, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is ancient. So selkies particularly would, in some children's stories, the selkies would actually revisit their families on land once a year. And in the typical folklore, she's never seen again by them. In one version, a selkie's wife was never seen again, at least in human form, by the family, but the children would witness a large seal approach them and greet them plaintively. I mean, like, it's very much this whole idea of like broken homes and stuff like that. It's an odd one. Male selkies were described as being very handsome in their human form and having great seductive powers, much like an incubus as opposed to a succubus, a seafaring incubus. Or that's it. And they typically seek those who are dissatisfied with their lives, such as married women waiting for their fishermen husbands. So again, even with the male form, it's changed. It's not like someone abandoning. It becomes someone who's there, like a seductor. To home. So mermaids are home wreckers, basically. Yeah. And sirens are boat wreckers. And that's how you can make the differentiation between the two, I guess, which is interesting.
Isn't it interesting that, like, the fish gods were fertility, and even though we've kind of moved towards destruction, it is still about reproduction.
Yeah.
It's almost like as a human race we're obsessed with it, right?
Absolutely. Oh, wait. What is that? At the door. Tom, what is it? It's opening. Oh, bird-like creatures. What are they, sirens? Oh, can you hear them? Tom, where are you going, Tom? No, Tom, don't go out the door. Oh, God, Tom, they're gonna... Well, that's it for Tom. Tom has left us now. It's only up for me to finish off this episode of the podcast. So please bear with me. I do apologise for that. I don't know the health of Tom at this point in time, so we don't know if he'll be returning for another episode. You'll just have to tune in and wait and see. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about mythological creatures that hold that mermaidish, merfolk element to them. And one interesting version of this is Mami Wata, or Mummy Water, is a water spirit or goddess from Western Africa, Eastern Africa, and Southern Africa. Now, historically, scholars trace her origins to early encounters between Europeans and West Africans in the 15th century, where Mami Wata developed from depictions of European mermaids. So it's an influence. So essentially, these sailors will be coming over, and as part of the colonization process or whatever, or like early trade in the 15th century, they will help form another. Sort of law, essentially, is the idea of Mami Wata. Now, she's conceived as an exotic female entity from Europe, so she is presumably white, often a white woman with a particular interest in objects foreign to West Africans that are, her worshippers will then place in shrines. I find that really interesting, that idea that, you've got these traders that are kind of like seeing all of these new objects and stuff like that. And these traders are coming from the seas. And alongside these traders coming from the seas, you've got this new sort of like mythological goddess that wants all of these cool new things that these colonizers or traders are, providing. So Mami Wata really has like an interesting sort of like element to it. Later on, the images of Mami Wata actually changes to match a mid-19th century snake charmer, a very famous one called Nala Damajanti. Nala Damajanti, who was very popular at the time. And this idea of Mami Wata being a mermaid kind of changed into her being a snake charmer. So people that were like pushing for this like mythos really had like an interesting sort of approach to this. It's like ever changing sort of thing. Really interesting. So she's especially venerated in parts of Africa and the Atlantic diaspora, and also has been demonized in some African Christian and Islamic communities in the region. So, she's, if anything, like a depiction of paganism as well, with that in mind. I thought that was really interesting. Now, with all of these depictions, what we're actually like getting at with... the idea of these and how they group together is the idea that they are of the water element. You have like fire spirits, you have spirits of the earth, and you have spirits of water, etc. What I find interesting is when you get into esoteric interpretations of like water creatures or water elementals, you can see like a clear definition of creatures that we now know throughout mythology and the base elements as well. So there was a guy called Paracelsus, who is the chap who essentially first described certain elementals that we know through fantasy and stuff. So, for example, the earth elemental of a gnome is something that we all are aware of, etc. We actually have a Patreon episode about gnomes that will be coming out, or has already come out before you've like listened to this. So have a look at that. We go into a lot more detail about Paracelsus. Find a Paracelsus as an individual very, very interesting, because he's essentially from the 17th century. He is or actually earlier than the 17th century, he is able to teach people about all of these different like sort of like esoteric and like mythological sort of like elements in life, and treat it as fact essentially. He's the leading knowledge on certain subjects and stuff. And so like we've got these other elements, yeah. So Paracelsus works are adopted by something called theosophy as well, which can incorporate things like ceremonial magic and other things like that. Okay. So Paracelsus essentially has four different elements. You've got gnomes, that's earth. undines, which are water, and that's essentially our mermaids, etc. Sylphs, which are air, and then salamanders, which are fire. Yeah, they're very popular in gaming and stuff like that. Is the idea of a fire salamander. So I just wanted to give you some quotes from Paracelsus before we move on. So from Liber de Nymphis, or the book on nymphs, sylphs, pygmies and salamanders, Paracelsus would describe them as: the nymphs are elemental spirits of the water, beautiful and in human shape, but they have no immortal soul unless they marry a man. So you can see that very major similarity between all of the other elements that we've looked at. But someone like Paracelsus is one of the original sort of people to categorize it properly and almost treat it almost like a scientific thing that they are describing, much like, you know, someone who's gone off to like categorize like African animals during that time would then be able to describe them for people, you know, back home, etc. In this case, you know, it's just these fantastical creatures. Paracelsus is the leading thought on it. Here's another quote from him. Okay, they live as men do and reproduce, eat, talk, act, and build their own dwellings underwater. So Paracelsus emphasized that elemental beings weren't symbolic, but literal creatures with societies, customs, and roles in that natural order, though invisible to most. You can really get away with a lot, can't you? You can pretty much say anything if you're essentially saying, well, it's invisible to you, but I can see it, so I'm going to, like, you know, make a buck writing books on the subject. Quite interesting. I like that. I like that he's able to get away with that. So I did mention this idea of theosophy, and it's a nice way for us to kind of end. It's essentially it's sort of like a mixture of like a religion or like a thought process, or I guess like, you know, cosmology or something like that. It's between like a religion and a science. It's theosophy. Okay. So there are various forms of theosophical speculation. They have certain common characteristics. The first, essentially, is an emphasis on mystical experience. So theosophical writers hold that there is a deeper spiritual reality and that direct contact with that reality can be established through intuition, meditation, revelation, or some other state transcending normal human consciousness. Now, that's obviously something that has like bled off into other hippy-dippy sort of like thought processes and stuff like that. Modern theosophists claim that all world religion contains such an inner teaching, and much attention is devoted to deciphering the meaning concealed in sacred texts. Okay, so they kind of believe that everything points to one essential guide or rule book for life almost, but there's more to it than that, that there's a hidden meaning, there's a hidden esoteric meaning, and in a way I can kind of feel that that's like very similar to the idea of Gnosticism, that, like, you know, Gnosticism is essentially a hidden meaning that has been unlocked, but then that's able to be seen in other religions, possibly. So in theosophy, getting it back to merpeople, the idea of merpeople or undines becomes a symbol for inner alchemy. Inner alchemy is a theosophical term, and it refers to the transformation of the self spiritually, psychologically and energetically, modelled on the process of external alchemy, the physical alchemy, but turned inwards. So instead of trying to change lead into gold, inner alchemy aims to translate basic aspects of a human being, like ego, ignorance, or instinct, into something higher, such as wisdom, enlightenment, and spiritual power. There's gold in us all. You just have to, you know, turn that lead into gold, essentially. But anyway, so what are they attributing this idea of undines or merpeople to? Yeah. So essentially, water equals the subconscious, the emotions, the astral body. The undine, the actual elemental forces and stuff like that, that was, you know, described by that Paracelsus chap, is the astral forces of desire and emotion. And then a human union with an Undine, as Paracelsus mentioned, the idea of like you can only get an immortal soul unless you marry a man, is an awakening of the soul through mastery of the emotional self. You know, which is like, again, like what they're taking that from is lots and lots of different ideas and stuff like that. One of them that comes to mind is the idea of the nymph who merged with Hermaphrodite in order to create like a man/woman sort of like, you know, one being. A very similar sort of like end result. If you were to like describe what the like purpose of that story is, what it's telling its audience and stuff like that, it would be very similar in the you know, in the theosophical sort of like process of essentially saying that there is one hidden meaning in all of religion. So yeah, I think if anything, you know, we've been able to cover this subject, but I think what's really interesting here is the idea of just looking again at theosophy. Just if you're interested in like this idea of how like all of these different stories across time like have a like a base element of truth to them and similarity. You know, there's loads of, for example, like different versions of the flood myth throughout time. It could be essentially that you know, there was a big flood at some point in time, but there could also be the fact that everyone needs that element of symbolism within their culture, you know, and it serves a purpose to tell a broader narrative than just, oh, there was a flood and God was angry with us. So, you know, it's interesting. I like that a lot. So anyway, that's pretty much it. If you are interested in mermaiding, you can actually get involved in something called mermaiding, which is essentially people swimming with mermaids' tails. You know, there's actually a website that you can go and you can hire a mermaid for the day. I thought that was also something worth noting, but unfortunately, I don't have anyone to engage in witty banter with today because Tom, unfortunately, is indisposed. Hopefully this will be sorted out for next week, and I appreciate that you've been able to just listen to me prattle on for the last 20 minutes. In the next episode, we are going to be looking at Lovecraft from a different angle. It's no longer in the sea, it is now in space. We're going to be looking at Event Horizon, a fantastic film that I've watched several times, and I actually cannot remember the plot of the film despite watching it several times. It's that good. So check that film out and check us out in the next episode of Two Strange Men. Thank you very much and goodbye.